Hello everyone, welcome to my garden. My name is Moses. I garden in zone 7A, 7B, and 8A in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. That is as of the latest designation on the map from 2023. So the zone that you're in will be determined by your zoning map. So I would look up your zoning map to determine what yours is. And of course, when you look at plants, the plants are going to have a designation as to what zones they can thrive in, whether they're perennials there or whether they're annuals. So that's something important to look into. I've been gardening here for the better part of 11 years. I really enjoy it. It's a hobby for me. And I decided it was finally time to share the garden with the world. And so I hope you find inspiration here. And so I want to take you on a tour today to see what's growing and to let you know what my plans are for the future with this garden. And so without further ado, let's take a look. So let's proceed into the garden. Now this walkway or bridge that you see here leads from the main deck straight into the fire pit, which is the center of the garden. Now my garden style is more traditional and cottage garden with some elements and hints of a Japanese garden, as you can see to our right here. Now I gotta tell you, I love many design styles for a garden, but my most favorite are traditional cottage and Japanese garden design. If we glance at this view here, it's all Japanese. Japanese gardens are known to evoke peace and tranquility. Their simple design is just so beautiful. And so I'm not trying to marry the two because I know they're different styles, but if you will, I am aiming to create outdoor rooms, right? One will be a traditional and one will be Japanese. Now, this Japanese theme I plan to continue as I expand on this garden design towards the back of it. So back here, there's an empty area that I'll show you a little bit later that is pretty much a clean canvas, and I will continue this Japanese theme further back. I will also create a clear separation between the two with different elements. So let's talk about what's to the right of us here. So as you can see, the landscape in this area is mostly gravel, as is synonymous with some parts of a Japanese garden. And we have a pond, we have some Japanese maple trees. This particular one here is a Bloodgood Japanese maple. And you'll notice that all my Japanese maples are in pots. That will be the case for now, but eventually some of these I plan to put in the ground somewhere. I'm just not sure where. So let's move in to get a closer shot. Here's the pond. This is not a very large pond. It does the job because it creates the effect that I'm looking for, and it's got the water sound trickling, which is very peaceful. I have 4 fish in this pond. One is a goldfish and the other 3 are koi. I have a few plants here. There's a variegated liriope there. If I pan this way, there are 2 green variety liriopes. At a distance back there, there is a boxwood and some toad lilies that are not in bloom yet. If I pan over this way, this is the foliage for the Japanese irises that that I have here. There are two varieties. One is a purple and one is a yellow, and they're actually stunning. I wish they were in bloom right now. But although they are not in bloom, you can see the foliage, these blades here. I think they add a certain softness to this landscape, and I think they're beautiful just by themselves. If I pan over to the left, there are two boxwoods there at the end of this walkway. There is a Nandina. There is a Japanese Yoshiki false holly right there. And there's a grouping of Liriopes and a big leaf hydrangea in a pot that has not bloomed yet. It's actually growing pretty slow this year. And right here in this section, there's also a Natchez crepe myrtle that's anchoring this garden space. This one blooms in white. It is a fast grower. I planted this maybe 3 to 4 years ago, and it was about 3 to 4 feet tall. And now I can tell you that it's probably a good 20 feet, maybe. It's pretty tall. I wanted a fast growing tree here because I wanted to provide some shade to this area, especially for the pond. It's helpful that it won't be in full sun because you get too much algae that way. Now, one distinct feature about this tree is its cinnamon color trunk. Now, if I come in closer, you'll see that the bark is peeling back. So as this tree matures, you'll get all that bark peeling off, and it will reveal the cinnamon trunk. As you can see, the bigger trunks are the ones peeling first, not the smaller ones, but they'll get there, and eventually it'll just be all cinnamon. This particular crepe myrtle is less prone to disease than some of the other varieties. So if you're looking for a tree to provide shade and you want a fast growing tree, this would be a good option. You want to prune this tree from the base up maybe 4 to 5 feet so that you can expose the trunk. As the tree matures, you'll get to enjoy that. Not only that, but I also love looking through the trunk of a tree and to see what's on the other side. And it also allows for a good oxygen flow. All right, so now moving back over to this section here, there is a dining deck by the pond, and there is a red dwarf Japanese maple in a pot. There's actually two. There's another one right behind it. All right, so now we're moving on to the fire pit area, which anchors this space because it's exactly in the center of the main garden. So let's walk in here. All right, I just want to pan out and show you what things look like from this vantage point. Now, I installed and built 3 decks in this space. This one straight ahead is the dining deck. This one here is the main deck that is attached to the house. And then way back here, there's the one I'm calling the sun deck because it's the sunniest part of the yard and it's where you can lounge and get some sun if you want to. I did not build these all at the same time. I added the main deck first. Actually, well, yes, I added the main deck first, then followed by the sun deck, then lastly the dining deck. The fire pit, however, was actually the first sitting area that I installed here before any of the decks were in place. So the design and evolution of this garden commenced with this fire pit. and there's a pathway that leads from the fire pit to the dining deck, and then of course there's this bridge that leads from the fire pit to the main deck, and then a walkway that leads from the fire pit to the sun deck. One thing about my design style is that I like more of an organic feel rather than pristine. Pristine is great, but I like using flagstone, using gravel, pea gravel, boulders. It's just something that really appeals to me as far as the garden, having it more of a organic design. Now this main flower bed here that extends from the dining deck all the way back here past the sun deck, all right, so let's proceed to the dining deck. I want to point out that this walkway here is flanked by some boxwoods on either side. These need a little pruning. They're starting to lose their round shape that I gave it early spring, so it's time to just reshape them again. So let's proceed through here. And so in shooting this video, I want to try to illustrate the certain angles and certain views that I think you would enjoy. At least I know I enjoy them. For example, this view here from the dining deck that overlooks the pond. You can hear the water trickling, and it's very peaceful and serene. One thing that I also love to do is to be able to see beyond trees and shrubs, just have enough separation so that you can see over to the other side, and it invites you to go explore parts of your garden rather than having it be obstructed by your plantings. This way you can see through and get a better perspective. And if I zoom back here, then turn around this way, I just want to show you what this view looks like. So as you can hopefully see in this video, that no matter where you're sitting or standing in the garden, you can look and be drawn to another section of the garden. So this flower bed, this starts here by the dining deck, is the one that continues all the way down in front of the sun deck. Now, as far as the plants that are here, this is a weeping green Japanese maple, which is now starting to come back. It has a lot of growth. Last year I had it in a pot and it became pot bound, and one thing I found with this particular variety is that it doesn't like to be pot bound. It doesn't like to live in a container for too long. Other varieties, they're okay with that, but this one wasn't too happy, and so I ended up having to, where you see here, it's cut off the trunk. It was probably a good 6-8 inches taller, and it had the weeping look already, but I had to cut that down because all of that died. So I took it out of the pot, planted it in this section in the garden, and it's actually doing really well. So I'm looking forward to that. The only thing I have to do is stake it. With this particular variety of Japanese maple, you want to put a stake by the main trunk, and you can put a stake as tall as you want the tree to be. So if you just want the tree to grow to 4 feet, then you'll put a 4-foot stake. If you want it to grow to 6 feet, then you'll put a 6-foot stake, and you get the idea. So you can control its growth habit. Next to this Japanese maple, there is a barberry bush that there's actually 2 of them. They do okay here, but as you can see, they're not fully red, and that's because they don't get enough sun. There's some spirea there that actually I pruned back this spring, and it's coming back pretty good. To the front of that, there is a trio of Encore azaleas that have gotten so big. I just planted these last year, and they're expected to bloom again in the fall. So I'm looking forward to that. Of course, there's the Japanese maple I mentioned earlier. One thing I want to highlight about this tree is that it has a lot of green foliage, and that's because it doesn't get enough sun. As compared to this one here, look at the difference. This one has some green, but it has a good amount of red, purple foliage on the top. Now, the tricky part about Japanese maples is trying to figure out what area they can thrive in the most. They like sun, but if you give them too much sun, especially that really hot afternoon sun, they tend to burn. So this one does better here, this one not so much, but I don't know where to move it to yet, and I also don't want to risk that I'm going to plant it in the ground in the wrong spot. And also I like that they flank the entry point of this garden, so I may end up planting them right there on the ground, right to the front of the pots. But again, I'm not sure. If I do that, then I have to move these boxwoods. So we'll see. Stay tuned for that. Look at this view here. So for a moment, I just want to not speak and just show you this view. All right, folks, so moving on this way. I want to show you what's growing here in this section. There's a boxwood there that I shaped into a little tree form, and it needs to be trimmed at the top because it's losing its shape. There's some daylilies that actually have done blooming. I wish you would have seen them. They're beautiful. And then there's hot red poke that is almost done blooming. I have to deadhead those. There's some nandinas here. There's some annual salvias. There's some Xena plants here in this post, which, by the way, I just purchased this from the Walmart shop, and it's got an Edison bulb in it. It's solar, and I gotta tell you, it puts out a good amount of light for being a solar post. So that was a good purchase. Here's a flower bed with Annabelle hydrangeas. There's about 4 plants here. They've been in the ground for about 4 or 5 years. Now, Annabelle hydrangeas bloom in June, so they're pretty much done blooming. Now, they look kind of smashed down, but that's synonymous with Annabelle hydrangeas. The stems are not that strong, and everyone complains about them, that even at the first heavy rainfall, if the blooms are in place, the plant collapses. But I went in here and I propped it up with some stakes, and it looks better, but not great, because the plants are actually way taller than what they appear. It's just that they're smashed down. I still love them, but I don't like that they don't stand up to the elements. I may end up sprucing up this garden bed and planting some other things here, and maybe I'll just move these to an area where they still get enough sun, but they don't get hit with so much rain. Right behind them are some arborvitaes. I planted these, I don't know, 7 years ago, and they were like 3 feet tall, and now they're like 10, 12 feet tall. They're suffering at the base because the Annabelle hydrangeas are kind of suffocating them a little bit, and then there's a fence right behind them, so they're not getting enough oxygen flow. So this bed certainly needs attention, and I will give it that attention as soon as I can. So if we move down here, the bed continues to what I call the hosta garden. This border here has some impatiens growing. Back here, if you can see it, there is an oak leaf hydrangea. This is actually ruby slippers. It's got its name because if I zoom in closer, you can see that the blooms that were white are now turning pink, and they will turn into a deeper red as the season progresses. I love the leaves on these. I love any oak leaf hydrangeas. This particular one thrives in the shade. There's some empty spots in here that I plan to fill with some additional plants, and so this part of the garden is a little simple, right? There's mostly hostas here of two varieties. There's the variegated and there's the solid green. There are some hydrangeas sprinkled in here, and this garden does need some attention, so I will be sprucing it up at some point in the near future, and I'll keep you guys posted. Continuing on to the center of the garden, I want to highlight the plants that I have growing here. So this flower bed has a limelight hydrangea that's doing fantastic. I believe this is the 3rd year. The limelight hydrangea is characterized by its massive honeycomb shaped blooms, and I want to zoom into it closer so you can see what these flowers look like. And this is not even the full size, they get much bigger than that. This plant is blooming at its prime because right now it's the middle of July, and it's going to bloom summer through fall. One thing I will admit is that when I planted this hydrangea here, I didn't account fully for its mature size. Right now the plant is getting close to 6 feet. I'm actually 5'7", and this plant's taller than me, so there you go. Now you know my height. It's no longer a secret. Not that it needed to be, but so here's the thing with this one. I may end up having to move it just by choice, because my intention with this flower bed was to start off at the front of the garden bed with low plants, and then followed by taller and tallest plant at the back. And so this hydrangea should really be in the back of this flower bed. But we will see what happens. There's some annual salvias here. Another thing I wanted to mention about the limelight hydrangea is that it is full sun. It can tolerate partial shade, but mostly full sun, so it can thrive better. There are some, and there's Luna navigating the garden. I should say guarding it from rabbits. There's some annual salvias there. There's some spirea that may start blooming again shortly, I think. There's some nandinas. There is a limelight hydrangea tree that is doing great. I planted this one in the spring, just this past spring, and so it's already competing with the massive limelight hydrangea. The growth habit is about the same. This tree will stay here though. I intended to put it there, and it's going to get wide enough, I think, where it's not going to encroach on the walkway. hopefully, but it will make quite a statement in this garden bed. Moving over to the right here, there is a boxwood that I shaped into a tree form, and it needs a little trimming, a little shaping right now. There's some red hot poke that is almost done blooming and needs to be deadheaded. Some lilies, daylilies there that are done blooming. Some more nandinas. Let's see what else. There's some phlox growing here. It's making a comeback since the rabbits ate them last year. There's some coneflowers that are also making a comeback, and some black-eyed Susans. There's a little Joe Pye weed plant growing there, and this is a pollinator magnet, and it's an easy plant to grow, so it's one that I really like. This way there is a zinnia in a pot that holds a lamppost. Now this lamppost I installed here about 2 weeks ago. It is solar, and I got to tell you, the light output on this is pretty strong. It's pretty good. It's is one that I got actually at the Walmart shop, and I'm really pleased with it. So if you're looking for a lamppost that's going to give you some good light output and it's solar, this is a good choice. And there are others online, so when you take a look. Boxwoods, there is a dwarf Alberta spruce here that's looking well. To the right of that, there is one of my favorite perennials, is the calla lily, and this particular plant comes in different color varieties. So I have a peach flower here. Look how stunning that is. There's a yellow variety here. This one's not fully opened. And then there is the purple variety. Now, once these are done blooming in this midsummer, they leave behind this great foliage, which I love. I'm all about flowering plants, but I'm also about foliage, because one thing to keep in mind when plants are done blooming, especially your perennials, you want to have some interest in the garden still with some pretty foliage. And this foliage here, if I can come in close, you can see this has like a confetti sprinkle to it. It's kind of neat, actually. There is a black diamond crepe myrtle here that will bloom in red in the next couple of weeks. There's some black-eyed Susans, and black-eyed Susans, I gotta tell you, are one of my favorite perennials as well, because they're drought tolerant. They require full sun, very little maintenance. They will thrive in almost any soil. And thanks to Mother Nature and the pollinators, they really do spread. All right, so now I'm going to turn around here and head over to the sun deck to show you what's going on back here. Here, see this butterfly bush? I actually did not plant that there, and I would not have, because it's right by the pathway. This was Mother Nature's doing. So I may end up having to move it eventually. So walking onto the sun deck, which is partly shady right now because the sun is just moving into this area. I just want to pan out this way to show you what's happening here. One thing that I enjoy about this deck here is that it's nestled in the garden, and that was very intentional on my part. So there's a view there. Let's walk up close to this flower bed. We have some juca plants on either side of this planter. You can barely see the planter now because the potato vines These purple ones, as well as the minty green ones, are cascading down, and they've almost covered the entire pot. And I actually love this arrangement. Let's zoom in a little closer. Look at this Canna plant in here, in this container, and this leaf. This flower. It's pretty stunning. And then there's some petunias growing in here, spilling out as well. Towering above is this Rose of Sharon, which has gotten quite big. It's probably been in the ground for 3 years here, I would say. If we move to the right here, there's another container with some petunias, a purple fountain grass, which I absolutely love. And I love the movement of grasses in the garden. And there's more potato vine there on the side. All right, there's purple smoke tree back here, which is not looking very purple because I think it might need more sun. There's a butterfly bush blooming in white back there. There's some arborvitaes up against the fence for privacy, and another butterfly bush right there. All right, moving down here, there's quite a sprinkle of black-eyed Susans. And again, this is an example of a perennial that just pretty much does its own thing and takes over. Now, last year, the rabbits decimated all of my black-eyed Susans and coneflowers and phlox. But this year, thanks to my dog Luna, who's somewhere around here in the yard, she has been really doing a good job at policing the landscape, and she keeps the rabbits at bay. So let's see, this little pathway here is there for a few reasons. One, to give me access to the garden, so that I can prune and clean up and get in there when I need to. And it also gives Luna a way in and out, because believe it or not, she tries her best not to trample plants. She goes through any pathways or between plants very carefully, because her goal is to go after the rabbits. When she was a puppy, I kept her in the house, and that's when the rabbits took over. But now that she is not going to bother with the plants, she's just going after rabbits. She's got her work cut out for her. She's my partner here, and I can't say enough about my Luna. Again, I'll show her to you shortly when I see her somewhere. Anyway, as you can see, this flower bed here is where this limelight hydrangea is. So none of these plants in the back are you able to see from the front of the flower bed. And my intent was that from the fire pit where you sit, to glance over and see the gradual layering of the plants. But again, if I move that limelight, that will take care of that. Here's a Canna plant here growing. You can see it's got a bloom on it. It's not quite open yet, but that's going to be stunning. I love Canna plants, even though they're perennials in my state. I don't mind replanting them every year, because they put on a really awesome show. Canna plants are rhinestones or bulbs, right? That you, in the fall, you can dig out and store them for the winter. And honestly, I am admitting guilt here. I don't do that. I just don't. Maybe eventually I will. It's just I don't have really a place to store them, but you can store them really in a basement, in a cool place. But that's just an admission on my part that I don't dig them up. I replant them. Okay, so but if you dig them up, that's great. You save some money, and you continue to use these same bulbs year after year, and and they do expand. And so each time you dig them out of the ground to store them, you'll have more and more. So it's a smart thing to do. All right, so what else do we have growing here? I have some evergreens, some foundation plants, some boxwoods. There's some sedum on either side of this pathway. More boxwoods on this side. I have some other containers here at the front of this bed. And if we pan out back here, this is the part of the garden that for the longest time was neglected because I just wasn't getting back here. It's a little bit on a slope, and so it tends to dry out really quickly, especially when we are not having any rain. But this year is doing okay. And again, here's another example of these black-eyed Susans that are really getting established in an area that I did not really plant them. So you have them in your garden in one section, and they actually do their thing and continue to grow. So if I pan out this way, I just want to give you a sense as to what this view looks like here. All right, so now I'm gonna turn around and come this way so that I can show you this part of the garden. So this pathway here, right here, leads to a section of the garden that's a work in progress. I talked to you about the Japanese garden that I would continue to expand on, and this area we're about to enter is the area that's unfinished that will be part of the Japanese theme garden, and I am really looking forward to that and looking forward to uploading videos on its development. There is a planter with shade plants here, as this is a shady area. There's some coleus, some begonias, and it's doing quite well. To the right side of this pathway, there is a river birch, which I planted maybe 4 years ago, and this is a pretty fast grower. I just want to zoom up here to show you and give you some perspective on the height. I mean, look at this. This tree has grown so much. And so I planted this tree here for two reasons. One, I love river birch trees. Number two, this area was already part shade, but this tree requires a good amount of sunlight, not full sun. It can thrive in part shade, and this is what this area is here. But it also gives me a little bit more shade in this area that I really wanted. Let's see what's at the base of this tree. Well, actually, before we do that, let's talk about the bark on this tree. So these trees are highly sought after for their unique peeling bark, as you can see. I don't think I mentioned the height of this tree when I bought it 3-4 years ago. It must have been about 4 feet tall. So you can see how quickly it has grown in that short time. So this tree will anchor this corner. I used to have a giant ornamental grass here, but I decided to remove it. Even though it looked good, it wasn't allowing for proper airflow. And if you know some things about gardening, one important aspect is that you want to have proper airflow so that your plants can thrive, getting the proper amount of oxygen. And not only that, but you're able to see through this trunk onto the other parts of the garden. So that's really neat. Corex grass at the edge of this pathway. You have some coleus variety right there, and these are kind of small because I just planted them a few weeks ago. You have some bugle weed ground cover there, which is variegated. That's one of my favorite ground covers, actually. And then you have some begonias, which in a few weeks they'll fill in this area nicely. Let's see, there's a elephant ear growing there. There's some pots with some impatiens, because again, this is a pretty shady area. If I turn around this way, more impatiens in a pot. There's a Japanese plant here that I'm actually forgetting the name of it right now, but this one thrives in the full shade. It's variegated. It's actually drought tolerant, very easy to grow, low maintenance, really zero maintenance. There's a hosta variety that is a lime green, which actually brings nice light to a shady area. I absolutely love hostas because they're easy to maintain, easy to grow, and they're drought tolerant as well, and they are shade. There's a few scattered ones around here. So this is, just to give you perspective, this is the garden bed at the end of the property behind the sun deck, right? So walking in through here, there's another flagstone pathway. There is some Japanese painted ferns here. There's an Andina, Japanese painted ferns, which actually this year they're doing really good because this area was burnt out last year. Empty corner there. I will plant something eventually. So let me just pan out here to give you an idea what this looks like from behind. There's some laripe grasses there, variegated. And let's see. Let's take a glance around from this angle. All right, guys, so now let's move on to the unfinished part of the yard that will be, as I stated, the Japanese garden. So moving on through here, there's a variegated hydrangea that is actually just about done blooming. There's another big leaf hydrangea there. There's some shade plants in a pot, hosta, coleus, let's see here, there's some daylilies in there. They bloom in red, but they've already bloomed for this season. And then this is a glance at the main garden from the Japanese garden area. And can't skip on another elephant ear. There's some annuals growing in here. I'm sorry, perennials. So here's one thing. This is a euchera, right? So one thing you'll find, because a lot of people wonder, why do you plant perennials in a pot? Well, they come back just like they would on the ground. I find that planting perennials in a pot, right, serves a low maintenance purpose, right? Not only that, it is in a controlled environment. So if you have a drought, you probably are more prone to come around and water your pots, but maybe not so much if they're planted out in the garden. At least I've made that mistake where in a drought I didn't water enough and some of the plants in the garden died, but the plants in the pots survived. There's some fern in here. There's even a little hosta buried way in here. You can barely see it. There it is. And this is blooming right now. It's not a showy plant. It's one of the eucheras that doesn't have a real bright foliage. It's, green and purple, but it's healthy and it's thriving. So I'll take it. All right, so now this area here, let me just go back. There's my Luna. Oh, and she's hot because it is about to be 90 degrees here. So this whole area here will be where the Japanese garden will continue. This surface here is a hardscape, so I decided to leave it. It's not pretty. It's asphalt that stems from the driveway out here, so we're only using the front driveway, the main area of the driveway, to park our vehicles, and back here we don't need to park cars. So apparently whoever lived here before had a lot of vehicles and they extended their driveway into the yard, but we're not using it for that purpose. So this eventually will be the Japanese garden. I probably will end up continuing the pea gravel that you see here in this pathway down because I want to give it a facelift. I don't like the way that looks, but it's a hardscape to work with that I can just give it a facelift and call it a day. So I will be uploading videos about that. We'll probably bring in more planters, some stones, some flagstone. This fencing here is a stockade fence, very basic, and it doesn't lend itself to a Japanese theme, so I will be giving the fence a facelift. I intend to do that myself by bringing in some elements that will transform the fencing to make it look more appealing, more attractive, and more like a Japanese theme. I'm thinking some bamboo and such, so we'll see about how that develops. Continuing on this way, there's another Japanese plant here by the hydrangea. There's an astilbe that's not doing great, but it's still there. There's a rhododendron, some coleus. There's some hostas here with a pop of yellow, and then of course this giant leaf hosta, which is pretty stunning. And these just do their thing every year. They've already shed their blooms. All right, so now let's see here. Let's pan around here. Lastly, I want to highlight these two planters. There's one there and one there, and the best part about these planters is these these elephant ears. I want to show you this, how stunning these leaves are. If I put my hand up against it, you can see the size of them, and this is not even the full size. They're going to get even bigger than that. And the color on these is so beautiful. It's like nature's paintbrush. You can see the detail. It looks like it was painted with a feather. And then these purple veins that run through the leaves, absolutely stunning. This is also another plant that it's an annual for us, and I'm also guilty of not digging them out and storing them for the winter, so I let the plant die off and I buy new ones in the spring. So I'm also guilty of that. But there you go, folks. Let's pan out this way for a second. Alright guys, that concludes this introduction video. I hope you found inspiration here, and if you did, please hit the like and subscribe button so I can continue to upload these videos in the future. Take care and be well.